In the 1920s, warlords ravaged China, leaving fields of dead. But in the remote mountains of Xiangxi, there was a terror far older than war: corpse driving. It was an ancient art, guiding the souls of those who died away from home, forcing them to hop back on their own two legs. I, a young journalist recently returned from the West, scoffed at such tales. Armed with my camera and the arrogance of reason, I journeyed into the mountains to debunk the so-called feudal superstition. My goal: to find the last known corpse driver still practicing the forbidden art. The night I found it, the rain was biblical, and the mountain path was slick with mud. Exhausted and hearing the faint, chilling sound of distant gunfire, the sight of a lone, swaying red lantern became my only salvation. It was a dilapidated inn, sitting alone in the valley like a grounded ghost ship. The man who opened the door was ancient and gaunt, his eyes dark and empty. He didn't ask who I was or where I came from. He simply stepped aside, allowing me entry. A plume of smoke curled from his tobacco pipe, a lonely signal flag guiding me into the damp, dim interior. He led me to a small room, dry at least, but smelling strongly of mildew. As I prepared to thank him, his voice, raspy and low, sounded like two pieces of sandpaper grinding together. He pointed to the door directly opposite mine, a heavy wooden structure secured by a massive iron padlock and covered with yellow talismans. The room on the left, he croaked, is for the living. The one on the right is for those who are still traveling. Listen closely. Do not, under any circumstances, open that door. No matter what you hear, it is the rule. With that, he vanished into the dark hallway, leaving his warning to settle in my chest like a block of ice. The oil lamp in my room soon sputtered out. I lay in bed, unable to sleep. The hallway was consumed by a dreadful silence. Even the roar of the rain outside seemed muffled and swallowed by the inn. All I could hear was the frantic rhythm of my own heart and the rush of blood in my ears. Just as I was drifting off, the sound began. Not from outside, but from beyond the locked door. It started as a faint, intermittent scratching, as if someone were lightly dragging their fingernails across the wood. I held my breath, afraid to make a single sound. The scratching stopped, replaced by a low, muffled thump, thump. The sound was deep but regular, like some heavy object was rhythmically knocking against the floor with minimal movement. The legends of the corpse drivers flooded my mind. They couldn't bend, only hop. Fear gripped my throat like an icy hand. I clamped my hands tightly over my nose and mouth. Jiangshi don't see. They track the living by their qi, their breath. If I could stop breathing, perhaps they would think the room was empty. That agonizing wait felt like a century. Just as I felt I might pass out, the copper bell began to ring in the hallway. Clear, yet deeply unsettling. The moment the bell sounded, the thumping from next door became faster, more desperate, filled with a frantic energy. The corpse driver had arrived. He was readying his luggage. I knew I should obey the warning, but my damn journalistic nature compelled me. I needed to see it, to prove it was a charade. I released my hands, let air rush into my lungs, and crawled, trembling, to the door. I carefully placed my eye against a tiny crack in the wood paneling. I saw it. The mottled cyan skin, the cloudy white of an eye. A pair of feet in tattered Qing dynasty boots, hopping stiffly on the wooden floor. A yellow talisman was flapping violently, just inches from the forehead of a blurry silhouette. It wasn't a person. It was a corpse, reanimated by dark magic. I stumbled backward, letting out a primal, uncontrollable scream. The bolt on the opposite door exploded with a deafening crack. I scrambled up, flung open my own door, and bolted into the hall. At the far end, the corpse driver stood motionless, simply watching me. Ignoring him, I ran out of the inn, back into the torrent of rain and mist. I no longer cared about bandits or gunfire. All I wanted was to escape the hopping terror governed by the talisman. I ran until I collapsed from sheer exhaustion. The next morning, I awoke in a small abandoned shrine. Sunlight filtered through the bamboo. The inn was gone, and everything felt like an absurd nightmare. Except for one thing. In my satchel, I found a shattered yellow talisman stained with mud. It was a silent witness telling me that last night, everything was true.